Welcome to the next Rivals Racing League Season 53 track guide. Today's video is for Bristol. Today I'll be going over just some information about the track lines you want to run, information about the setup, things like that. So without further ado, go ahead and roll off pit road. So we will be using the dual pit road layout, so just be aware of that. Your pit box might be on either side. It'll probably be on the front stretch, but just be aware of that. Under green, you're only going to have to use one side of the pit road, but under caution, you have to use both ends. Now let's talk about the track. This is actually, from what I've seen, a fairly multi-groove rendition of Bristol. It doesn't have the visible PJ1 at the bottom, but it kind of drives like there is some. The general idea, though, is that you want to enter a little bit lower than the line that you're trying to run, wash up in center, and then cut down on exit, as I failed to do that there. But kind of want to enter your line a little lower, wash up in center, and then cut down towards the exit. So you can run a really high lane like this, just minus the wall contact. Then you can also run the middle lane here, wash up a little higher and then cut down through center, and then you can even run the bottom lane. Now you can make it to the inside without using any brake, especially at the beginning of the run, but I would recommend putting in just a tad bit of brake so that way you don't have to absolutely crank the wheel to make it to the inside. Also, the car gets a little bit unstable when you have a lot of wheel in it after you kind of get off the banking, so you want to not turn too much until you really get into the banking, and then as you get off the banking you want to watch that throttle, so that way you're not putting a ton of wheel into it when you're exiting the corner. The outside lanes, the kind of the further you go up the track on entry and exit, the more stable the car is going to be. You can use more throttle, and then especially as the night goes on, you'll be able to use more throttle input. But I would be a little bit wary of going wide open off of the corners. I think that that's something that you want to avoid. You can go like 95% throttle, but just that last little 100% throttle does tend to get the car a little upset. Unless you take a very aggressive arc to the corner, like let's say this, like you cut down really far, then you can get in the gas pretty early. But this is kind of what I would recommend. The tire wear isn't too bad here for most of the run, but towards the end of the tire life, it can get pretty bad. So while I wouldn't recommend any sort of aggressive tire saving, I would advise trying not to completely burn the tires off the car. You do want to have some rubber left over for the end. Speaking of rubber, for this race, 4 tire sets are going to be available, meaning you're going to need to go about 50 laps per set. Now, the amount you can make it on fuel is, I don't know, like 160 laps at least, so you can make it past halfway. So if this race goes green, you could pretty easily make this on a one-stopper if you wanted to. So the extra tire sets are really just there for cautions. I would recommend going as long on a set as you feel like you can, so you have more left over for the end of the race. As the tires wear, it gets... it doesn't get a whole lot slower, but it does reduce your ability to swap lanes quickly and make passes. Passing's probably going to get more difficult as the race goes on, as the tires wear. So I would advise trying to keep some extra sets for late race restarts, as we usually tend to have here at the RRL. I'll show you a green flag pit stop. This is going to be for the front stretch pit road, just using that one. So let's go ahead and get down to pit road speed. Make that box just barely. And then pit road speed doesn't actually start until you basically reach the pit wall. So long as you make sure you clear the commitment line on entry, then you should be good to make it into your box. It wasn't the cleanest pit entry. But that's the general idea of what you want to do. Now let's start talking about qualifying. So this is going to be about the same conditions as qualifying. It's going to be late afternoon-ish, round 4 something, track conditions wise. So let's talk about qualifying. So I think you can probably get it on either the first or second lap. Tires come up to temperature pretty quickly, So you want to run the outside, get a nice arc for your lap. And then I would recommend middle or top of one. Okay, maybe not the first lap. Might be a second lap because the tires took a little bit longer to come up to temperature than I thought. So let's try it on our second lap here. Get a nice run off of turn 4 to start our lap. I would recommend middle or outside of 1 and 2. But then I would recommend bottom of 3 and 4. Just a little bit of brake on entry. Get that thing rotated. And then up off that corner. Not the greatest qualifying lap. And I'm not really sure, what kind of time to aim for. As the track rubbers in, it's going to change that a lot. As you can see, the track has gotten noticeably tighter than it was when I set the lap that you can see in the bottom right. So the more rubber that builds up on the track, keep in mind this is a concrete track. It responds very aggressively to rubber buildup, kind of like a Dover type situation. And this might actually make the bottom better as time goes on if people run the outside a lot. It's going to tighten the track up. It's going to make the car not turn quite as good over the course of the race, but it will produce less tire wear. But all that means is that I'm not exactly sure what lap time would be good for qualifying, but whatever really feels like you weren't bound up too hard on the wheel and that you weren't really having to fight the throttle too hard on corner exit, both in terms of keeping the rears from spinning as well as keeping the car from plowing into the wall. That should do it for this Bristol track guide. Hope it explained things decent enough, and I'll see you in the race.